in the West, including last week's Brussels bombings, is under growing pressure from Syrian and Iraqi military offensives to retake bastions of its self-proclaimed caliphate. More details in this report.
Victory over Daesh on Sunday, as army sappers were defusing mines and bombs planted by the militant group in the city's ancient ruins. Daesh lost at least 400 fighters in the battle for the city. However, on the government side, 188 troops and militiamen were killed. Earlier, the Iraqi army announced the launch of an offensive to recapture second city Mosul, held by militants since June 2014. Troops also captured the airport southeast of the city. The Syrian Observatory said that the pullout had been ordered by Daesh High Command. Daesh, behind a string of attacks in the West, including last week's Brussels bombings, is under growing pressure from Syrian and Iraqi military offensives to retake bastions of its self-proclaimed caliphate. The militant group overran the Panorama ruins and adjacent a modern city in May 2015. It blew up two of the site's treasure temples, its triumphal arch, and a dozen tower bombs in a campaign of destruction that UNESCO described as a war crime punishable by the International Criminal Court. The militants used Palmyra's ancient amphitheater as a venue for public executions, including the beheading of the city's 82-year-old former antiquities chief. Meanwhile, UNESCO chief Irina Bokova on Thursday had welcomed the Syrian government offensive to recapture the city. The oasis city's recapture is a strategic as well as a symbolic victory for President Bashar al-Assad, since it provides control of the surrounding desert, extending all the way to the Iraqi border.
Moving on to Iraq, where thousands of desperate civilians were fleeing fighting on Sunday on the new front opened by Iraqi forces against the militant group south of the city of Mosul. Iraqi army troops and allied paramilitary fighters on Thursday launched a major offensive aimed at retaking the northern Nineveh province, the capital of which, Mosul, is the main hub of Daesh militants in Iraq. The forces have been advancing from their base in Mahmoud towards the town of Qayyara, about 60 kilometers south of Mosul. Growing numbers of civilians have been fleeing the advance to Mahmoud, where they are being assisted by Kurdish Peshmerga forces. The Iraqi government has described the advance as the first phase of what is expected to be a long and difficult operation to retake Mosul, the country's second city. More than 3.3 million people have been displaced by conflict in Iraq since the start of 2014. Moving on to Yemen, where drone attacks killed 8 men suspected of belonging to Al-Qaeda in southern Yemen on Saturday night as a U.S. campaign against the militant group goes on amid a wider civil war in the country. 2 missiles hit the fighters who had gathered in courtyards in the villages of Al-Hadoun, and Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, AQAP, has taken advantage of a war pitting the Houthis against forces loyal to exiled President Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi to grab territory and operate more openly. The United States has kept up a drone campaign against the militants, although it evacuated the last of its military and intelligence personnel from Yemen in March last year. Its attacks have killed some of Al-Qaeda's top leaders by a drone in June. The United States has acknowledged using drones but declines to comment on specific attacks. Moving on to Libya, where 4 Bangladeshis have been killed in gunfights between rival groups in the war-torn Libyan city of Benghazi. State Minister for Foreign Affairs said that the embassy officials had received 3 bodies and they were being stored in a hospital in Libya. The 4th body had not yet been recovered. Alarm said that they died in clashes between 2 Libyan groups in Benghazi on Saturday. An estimated 20,000 Bangladeshis are believed to be working in Libya, even though Dhaka some 6 months ago banned the sending of workers to the war-torn country. Last year, 2 Bangladeshi workers were abducted by suspected militants from a southern Libya oil field. They were freed after more than 2 weeks. Libya has descended into chaos since the 2011 ousting of Muammar Gaddafi. The country has had 2 rival administrations since mid-2014, when an armed alliance overran the capital, setting up its own authority. The government, backed by the internationally recognized parliament, fled east. A top court in the United Arab Emirates jailed 11 people for life on Sunday after convicting them of plotting terrorist attacks in the Gulf country. The Federal Supreme Court in Abu Dhabi jailed 2 others for 15 years, 13 for 10 years, and 6 for 3 years, and 2 for 5 years. 7 defendants were acquitted, and 2 of those jailed for life were tried in absentia. According to the Khalij Times newspaper, the defendants were convicted of plotting to carry out terrorist operations throughout the country. They were also found guilty of endangering the safety and security of the country and the lives of individuals, including the leadership and its symbols, with the intention to cause damage to state and private infrastructure. Moving on to Belgium, where the prosecutors charged 3 men with terrorist offenses over the Brussels bombings, and Italian police have arrested an Algerian suspected of having produced false documents for militants connected to the attacks. More details.
Belgium announced it charged 3 men with terror offenses over the suicide attacks on the Brussels airport and subway, as organizers cancelled a solidarity rally at the government's request because police are too strapped to cope. The suicide bomb attacks targeting Brussels airport and a rush-hour metro train on Tuesday killed 31 people, including 3 of the attackers, and injured hundreds more. Meanwhile, Daesh militants group has claimed responsibility after a series of raids and arrests in Belgium and Germany since the attacks. Algerian Jamaluddin Wali, 40 years old, was arrested by Italy's anti-terrorism police in southern Italy. Earlier, Italian media said that he was the subject of an arrest warrant issued by Belgium for producing and procuring false documents to be used in illegal immigration. His name was found in documents in a raid in an apartment near Brussels last October, including some documents with photos of some of the militants involved in the attacks in Paris and in Brussels. Meanwhile, Belgium charged a second suspect linked to foiled French attack. Of the 3 men charged on Saturday, Belgian prosecutors named one as Faisal C. Belgian media identified him